welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a celestial pairing that often gets people talking, Aquarius and Capricorn.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one.
We've pulled together a really interesting mix of material, traditional astrology guides, modern relationship advice sites, and even some very candid personal stories from a Reddit forum.
Quite a range.
Right. So our goal is to really dig into this dynamic between the water bearer and the sea goat across all aspects: love, sex, friendship, work.
And figure out where these seemingly different energies of air and earth might connect.
Or where they create some, let's say, intriguing friction.
Right away, what stands out is this fundamental difference, their core energies.
Yeah.
Capricorn, being an earth sign, tends to prioritize logic, a very practical approach to life. And that really extends deeply into how they build intimacy.
How so?
They're looking for a genuine connection that develops steadily over time, almost like building a strong foundation,
Definitely. And then you have Aquarius, an air sign, bring a very different vibe.
Totally different.
Intellectual, often unpredictable, and as one of our sources cleverly put it, street smart.
Mm-hmm.
They have this inherent need for freedom, a real drive to express their energy in, spontaneous ways.
Which definitely shows up in how they approach intimacy, often with a more unconventional twist.
Okay, so with these clear differences, it kind of begs the question, what initially draws them to each other?
It's fascinating, actually. Several perspectives suggest that their contrasting personalities can be a major source of attraction.
Really? The opposites attract thing.
Sort of, yeah. Capricorn often finds Aquarius's creativity and their ability to see things from a completely different angle really compelling.
Interesting.
While Aquarius, on the other hand, can be deeply impressed by Capricorn's strong work ethic, that unwavering sense of purpose.
Ah, okay. So it's like they see something in the other they themselves lack.
Exactly. And that can spark a real interest. Sometimes it even leads to a friendship or a romantic connection based on this mutual respect for their different strengths.
That makes perfect sense. So when that initial interest moves into the realm of, love and romance, how does it usually play out?
Well, the material we looked at suggests the initial attraction can be quite powerful.
Mm-hmm.
For Capricorn, Aquarius can represent something new and exciting, a perspective that feels like it exists outside the usual zodiac expectations, maybe.
A bit exotic, perhaps.
Could be. And for Aquarius, Capricorn's dedication and sheer determination can be surprisingly alluring.
Okay.
We see this pattern of opposite traits drawing them together again and again. Aquarius drawn to Capricorn's grounded nature.
Right.
And Capricorn intrigued by Aquarius's innovative spirit.
But it can't all be starry-eyed gazes, right? There must be challenges when they start dating.
Oh, absolutely. Several sources point to differences in their natural rhythm and focus.
Like what?
Well, Capricorn's approach can sometimes feel too methodical, too planned for Aquarius.
A bit stifling.
Yeah, potentially. Aquarius might prefer a more spontaneous connection, often on an intellectual level first,
Cerebral connection, got it.
However, here's an interesting angle. Aquarius's capacity to bring about change, to introduce new perspectives, that can actually be quite stimulating and exciting for Capricorn.
Ah, so the unpredictability isn't always a negative.
Seems not. It can shake things up in a good way sometimes.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when they start thinking about the long haul? Can these two actually build a lasting, committed relationship?
There's a sense of, let's say, cautious optimism in what we've found.
Cautious optimism, I like that.
An appreciation tends to grow for how they can complement each other.
How so?
Aquarius can, maybe unexpectedly, gain a sense of security from Capricorn's stability, something Capricorn values deeply.
Okay.
And at the same time, Capricorn gets challenged by Aquarius to be more adaptable, more open in their thinking.
A bit of push and pull.
Right. And this kind of give and take can actually help them develop shared goals and dreams.
But it takes work.
Definitely. For a long-term relationship to thrive, it really seems to hinge on both individuals genuinely respecting those fundamental differences and finding common ground in their core values, even if their approaches to those values differ.
So different methods, same underlying principles.
Potentially, yeah. It's about learning to navigate life's challenges with mutual respect and, celebrating each other's successes too.
We even have some specific insights from Linda Goodman focusing on a Capricorn woman and an Aquarius man. What were the key points there?
Goodman's analysis really highlights potential areas of significant friction,
Oh,
particularly in how they express themselves and their ideas. She points out that while both might have unconventional thoughts,
yeah.
a Capricorn woman tends to keep them private, whereas an Aquarius man is much more likely to, well, broadcast his eccentricities.
The quiet versus the loud unconventionality.
Pretty much. She draws a contrast between the Capricorn woman's realistic worldview and the Aquarius man's often more imaginative, maybe less grounded perspective.
Like his head's in the clouds sometimes.
Yeah, that's the vibe, yeah. Goodman also emphasizes that the Capricorn woman will likely need to accept the Aquarius man's strong loyalty to his friends.
Even if she doesn't quite get it.
Right, even if her definition of friendship is more traditional. There's also a warning that the Capricorn woman could become too self-effacing in the relationship.
Kind of fading into the background.
Possibly, yeah.
And what about the physical side of things in that particular pairing, according to Goodman?
She suggests physical intimacy might be somewhat unpredictable. An Aquarius man might have a tendency to separate love from physical passion.
Which could cause issues.
Could potentially lead to feelings of jealousy for a Capricorn woman, yeah. Even one who typically has a more reserved nature.
Interesting.
She portrays their sexual connection as something they both might accept rather matter-of-factly, perhaps without intense passion or, those emotional fireworks.
That's a pretty specific viewpoint. Let's broaden our scope again. Let's look at sexual compatibility between Aquarius and Capricorn in general, across all our sources.
Yeah.
What are the main takeaways there?
Interestingly, some sources suggest that the sexual aspect of their relationship can actually be quite fulfilling, maybe even a high point.
Really? After Goodman's take.
Yeah, it's a contrast. There's often a dynamic described where Aquarius brings the innovative ideas.
The air sign creativity.
Exactly. And Capricorn provides the grounded sensuality to make them happen, the earthiness.
Okay.
While Capricorn might initially be more reserved in this area, they can discover a real enjoyment in Aquarius's more open and experimental approach.
So it's a blend of the adventurous and the sensual.
That's a good way to put it. The earthiness of Capricorn appreciates the physical act itself, while the airy Aquarius might initially see sex in a more detached, maybe no-strings way.
Right.
However, it's mentioned that Capricorn might actually be quite receptive to Aquarius's pace and style.
So they can find a rhythm.
Potentially. The difference in needing emotional intimacy connected to sex is brought up, though. That's a potential challenge.
Yeah.
Capricorn often desires that deeper emotional connection, while Aquarius might not always prioritize it.
So one needs it, the other might not.
Right. But overall, the potential for a very exciting, even sizzling physical relationship seems to be there, according to some sources.
But there was a potential issue raised in one source about the rhythm of intimacy.
Yes, the idea that for Capricorn, sex can sometimes be seen as like a quick break from their routine, a stress reliever.
Okay.
This could leave Aquarius feeling a bit disconnected or unsatisfied if Capricorn seems ready to, move on too quickly afterward.
Right, if the emotional connection isn't there post-coitally.
Exactly. It highlights that potential difference in their emotional investment in the act itself.
Okay, let's switch gears then. Friendship. How do these two signs typically connect as platonic pals?
Well, our sources indicate they have fundamentally different approaches to friendship, too.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Capricorn, rooted in their earth sign, tends to value dependability, consistency, and a sense of mutual usefulness in a friendship.
Practicality again.
Right. Aquarius, being an air sign, prioritizes mental stimulation, personal space, freedom, and a connection that goes beyond just, surface-level interactions. They want something deeper, intellectually.
But similar to romantic relationships, there's an initial draw, right? They don't just avoid each other.
Absolutely. That initial spark often comes from that same fascination with their contrasting personalities.
The mutual respect thing again.
Yeah. They can develop a real respect for each other's strengths. Aquarius's imaginative thinking and Capricorn's strong work ethic. Often the foundation of the friendship is this admiration for what the other brings to the table.
And can they actually complement each other in a meaningful way as friends?
Yeah.
Beyond just admiring.
It appears they can. They have the potential to balance each other out quite nicely. Well, the strengths of one can help mitigate the weaknesses of the other. Capricorn can help ground Aquarius's sometimes lofty ideas in reality.
Bring them down to earth.
Literally.
Right.
While Aquarius can encourage Capricorn to explore new perspectives and possibilities, push them a bit.
Okay.
There's also mention of Capricorn offering really solid, practical advice that Aquarius can really benefit from when making decisions.
What about deeper conversations?
Yeah.
And, potential conflicts that might pop up in their friendship?
Their differing viewpoints can definitely surface in deeper discussions, no doubt about that.
Yep.
Capricorn, with their more traditional outlook, might feel uncomfortable with some of Aquarius's more liberal or unconventional ideas.
Mm-hmm.
However, Aquarius can appreciate Capricorn's experience and their respect for structure and order. They see value in that.
So there's a basis for understanding.
Yes, over time. By understanding and respecting each other's perspectives, they can actually enrich their friendship.
And conflicts. Where might those arise?
Could be things like Capricorn's intense career focus versus Aquarius's emphasis on personal goals or humanitarian causes, or just their differing social and political views, traditional versus liberal.
Right.
But again, like in romance, open communication and a willingness to find common ground seem to be the key to navigating these differences constructively.
It sounds like a friendship that could actually become quite resilient over time if they put the work in.
Indeed. In the long term, they can develop a strong rapport, a real reliance on each other.
That's good.
Aquarius can bring fresh ideas, introduce new hobbies, shake things up, while Capricorn can offer that unwavering, solid support during challenging times.
The steady rock.
Exactly. This has the potential to evolve into a lifelong companionship where both individuals experience positive growth through the relationship.
Now let's move into the professional arena. The workplace. How do Capricorn and Aquarius typically fare as colleagues?
The workplace. The sources suggest that their contrasting personalities can create some notable challenges in a work setting.
Okay, not surprising.
You have Capricorn, who generally prefers a traditional, practical approach.
Get it done, follow the rules.
Pretty much. Versus Aquarius, who tends to champion innovation and more unconventional methods.
Think outside the box.
Right. This difference in their core elements, earth versus air, can sometimes lead to difficulties in just, understanding each other's perspectives and priorities at work.
And it's not just their elements that differ, is it?
Yeah.
There's also something about how they approach taking action. Modalities.
That's a really important point. Capricorn is a cardinal sign,
Yeah.
meaning they are natural initiators. They like to take charge, get things started, lead the way.
Okay.
Aquarius, on the other hand, is a fixed sign.
And that means?
That often indicates a resistance to change, a preference for maintaining a stable, established way of doing things once they're set.
So one starts, the other stabilizes or resists.
Can be both, depending on the situation. But that fundamental difference in their approach to action and change can definitely create some friction, especially around decision-making and implementing new ideas.
So are there any areas in a work context where their styles might actually complement each other, where it works?
Yes, absolutely. It's not all bad news. Capricorn's practicality, their meticulous attention to detail, that can provide a really valuable counterbalance to Aquarius's more abstract, sometimes theoretical thinking.
Grounding them again.
Exactly. And conversely, Aquarius's creativity, their innovative mindset, can inject fresh energy and new possibilities into Capricorn's more traditional methods.
So potential for synergy, but also
potential for conflict. Seems pretty significant.
where might those conflicts typically surface in a professional setting?
Communication styles and differing priorities are flagged as key areas. Big time.
How so?
Capricorn might perceive Aquarius's ideas as too risky, maybe not sufficiently grounded in reality, just impractical.
Right.
While Aquarius could feel constrained or limited, even stifled, by Capricorn's more rigid adherence to rules and established procedures.
And time management. I can imagine that being tricky.
Oh yeah. Divergent approaches there. Capricorn often favoring structure, deadlines, efficiency. Aquarius prioritizing flexibility, allowing space for creativity, maybe seeing deadlines as suggestions.
Okay. What about teamwork then, and leadership?
Teamwork can be challenging given those differing priorities we just talked about.
Right.
However, if they can truly appreciate the strengths that each brings and really focus on a shared goal, they actually have the potential to form a very powerful partnership.
Blending the old and new.
Kind of, yeah. Blending traditional and innovative approaches, but leadership styles also tend to be quite different.
Let me guess. Capricorn hierarchical. Aquarius democratic.
You got it.
Hmm.
Capricorn often favoring a more traditional established structure hierarchy. Aquarius leans towards a more democratic, flat, innovative style.
Even their ambitions might differ.
Can do.
Oh.
Capricorn often focused on more traditional markers of career success title, money, status. Aquarius might be more driven by a desire to make a difference, pursue passions, innovate for a cause.
It sounds like even something like problem solving would require a very specific strategy for them to work together effectively.
Exactly. Capricorn tends to be very practical. Looks for solutions within existing frameworks, proven methods, what works.
Stick to the plan.
Right. Aquarius is more inclined to challenge the status quo, explore entirely new, innovative, maybe even disruptive solutions.
So the overall picture for work compatibility.
The summary seems to be inherent challenges due to their differences, definitely. But if they can recognize and genuinely value each other's strengths, they can create a very effective team that combines both traditional and innovative approaches. It takes effort, though.
Okay, let's really try to nail down the core of the matter here. What are some of the main potential challenges, the big sticking points, that could arise in any kind of relationship, romantic, platonic, professional, between an Aquarius and a Capricorn?
A significant point of tension, and this comes up again and again, centers around Aquarius's fundamental need for freedom, independence, which can clash pretty directly with Capricorn's inherent desire for stability, security, maybe even a bit of predictability in a relationship.
That push-pull again.
Exactly. Another common area of friction is Capricorn's more reserved nature, the time it takes for them to open up emotionally.
A slow burn.
Right. Versus Aquarius's often easy sociability, their friendliness, their adaptability.
Which can lead to?
Well, it can sometimes lead to Aquarius feeling like their efforts to connect aren't being fully reciprocated, like they're putting more out there emotionally.
That makes a lot of sense. What other potential sticking points did our sources highlight? Any others?
Yes. Capricorn's potential for what might be perceived as a somewhat controlling or maybe overprotective approach.
Uh-huh.
That can definitely chafe against Aquarius's fiercely independent spirit. They don't like being managed.
No.
And it's worth noting, both signs can be incredibly stubborn, really dig their heels in.
Oh, boy. Leading to?
Power struggles. Definitely potential for power struggles in their interactions. Plus, Aquarius's natural inclination towards adventure, embracing radical changes, wanting novelty. That can also clash with Capricorn's preference for a more predictable, quiet, agreeable existence.
So the thrill seeker versus the homebody dynamic.
Yeah. Yes.
And what about those really fundamental differences in how they view the world, the practical versus the idealistic? Does that keep causing problems?
Absolutely. That contrast between Capricorn's grounded practicality and Aquarius's often lofty idealism is a recurring theme. It doesn't go away. Capricorn's tendency towards rigidity, wanting structure, versus Aquarius's open-mindedness, their willingness to entertain almost anything, that can sometimes create communication barriers.
Okay.
We also see descriptions of Aquarius as potentially being emotionally detached at times, stubborn in their own way, unpredictable in their actions,
Right.
and sometimes so focused on grand visions, the big picture, that they might overlook the more practical day-to-day aspects of life.
Details matter to Capricorn.
Immensely. Linda Goodman even touches on potential conflict arising from, say, a Capricorn woman's strong sense of family obligation versus an Aquarius man's lack of enthusiasm for traditional social appearances or duties.
Okay, wow. So given all these potential hurdles, these clashes, what are some concrete strategies? What can an Aquarius and a Capricorn actively do to cultivate more harmonious relationships?
Open and honest communication. It's consistently emphasized across all the material we looked at. Absolutely crucial.
Talking it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially for navigating any differences in their approach to intimacy, allowing them to discuss their desires, their needs, their fears, without judgment.
That takes trust.
It does. Actively seeking out new experiences together can also be incredibly beneficial.
How did that help?
Well, Capricorn can offer that stable, secure base for Aquarius to explore their more adventurous side safely, while Aquarius can encourage Capricorn to step outside of their familiar routines, embrace new possibilities, maybe have a little fun.
It sounds like a real two-way street is essential then, both giving and taking.
Precisely. Successfully navigating their differences requires both patience and empathy. Lots of it. with each person making a conscious effort to respect the other's boundaries and desires.
Respecting boundaries.
Well,
Key.
absolutely. Mutual respect for those boundaries is what ultimately fosters a deeper connection. Finding a healthy balance between that need for stability, which Capricorn often provides, and the desire for adventure, which Aquarius brings. That's also key. Actively finding common ground in shared, perhaps even playful activities can really strengthen their bond.
And what about those inherent personality differences? Should they try to change each other? Because that rarely works.
No, exactly. The overwhelming consensus is to acknowledge and genuinely appreciate those differences rather than attempting to force change.
Acceptance, not transformation.
Right. Communicating openly and honestly about their feelings, their plans, their expectations, absolutely paramount. Giving each other sufficient personal space.
The freedom thing for Aquarius.
And respecting their individual needs for independence and alone time is also vital. For both, actually, in different ways. Keeping the spark alive in a romantic relationship might involve blending both classic and more unconventional gestures. Mixing it up.
Catering to both needs.
Yeah. And when conflicts inevitably arise, because they will, approaching them with patience and a genuine desire to understand the other's perspective is essential.
Understanding over winning.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Linda Goodman suggests focusing on each other's positive qualities, the virtues, and being willing to overlook minor irritations. Petty stuff.
Good advice for any relationship.
True. She also highlights the importance of Capricorn offering tolerance and patience regarding Aquarius's maybe reliability and emotional expression.
Okay.
And conversely, Capricorn benefiting from Aquarius's help in pursuing their ideals, finding their own ideal world.
Interesting. We also looked at some real-life experiences shared on Reddit, those personal accounts. What were some of the recurring themes that emerged from those?
Yeah, the Reddit stuff was fascinating. The experiences shared were really quite diverse, very mixed bag.
How so?
Ranging from very negative descriptions, people using terms like nightmare, mentioning manipulation, emotional unavailability, controlling behavior,
Yay.
to genuinely positive stories. People talking about strong communication, feeling like they complemented each other well as opposites, long-lasting marriages, supportive partnerships.
So it really varies.
Hugely. It really underscores the point that sun sign compatibility is just one piece of a much larger, more complex puzzle.
Right. The whole chart matters.
Exactly. The importance of considering the entire birth chart, moon signs, rising signs, aspects came up frequently as being critical for a more nuanced understanding of relationship dynamics.
Were there any specific challenges or successes that seemed to pop up repeatedly in those personal stories? Any common threads?
Yes. Themes of emotional distance were mentioned quite often, sometimes attributed to Aquarius, sometimes even to Capricorn needing time to warm up. The need for patience, particularly with Capricorn's more gradual approach to emotional intimacy, was another recurring point. People saying you just have to wait for them.
Okay.
And unsurprisingly, the contrasting desires, freedom for Aquarius, stability for Capricorn, were frequently highlighted as a central dynamic they had to navigate.
The core tension again.
Yep. Some Capricorns in the threads mention a need to feel genuinely valued and appreciated in order to fully thaw or open up emotionally.
Feeling seen.
Exactly. Ultimately, though, and this echoes what the more formal sources suggested, communication and mutual understanding were repeatedly cited as the most important factors in making the pairing work, regardless of the inherent challenges.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive then, what would you say are the core takeaways when we look at the Aquarius-Capricorn pairing overall?
I think the central theme really boils down to this fascinating interplay, this tension between the desire for freedom and the need for stability, and also between a more intellectual, maybe unconventional approach to life and a more practical, traditional one.
And this combination.
It inherently presents a certain level of challenge, no doubt, but it also holds significant potential for mutual growth and learning if they manage it well.
So it's not necessarily a relationship doomed from the start, or one that's guaranteed to be effortless, smooth sailing.
Not at all. While their differences are clear, really clear, our exploration suggests that these very differences can become a source of profound enrichment for both individuals.
But there is a condition.
Yes. If they're approached with understanding, open and honest communication, and a genuine willingness to find common ground and compromise.
It takes conscious effort.
A lot of it. There's a real possibility for what one perspective described as a yin-yang dynamic, where each partner brings essential qualities that help to balance the other out.
That's a nice image. And it's so important to remember that these are just interpretations based on sun signs, right? We can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. The wide range of personal experiences we touched on from Reddit really highlights that. Individual birth charts with all their unique complexities and nuances. Along with the specifics of individual life circumstances, they play a massive role in shaping relationship compatibility. Sun signs offer a valuable starting point, a lens.
A framework.
Yeah, a framework for understanding potential dynamics. But they're definitely not the whole story, not even close sometimes.
Finally then, what's a thought-provoking idea you'd leave our listeners with after this deep dive into the world of Aquarius and Capricorn?
Well, maybe consider the seemingly opposing forces that might be at play in your own life. Perhaps that push and pull between tradition and innovation you feel, or the tension between your own need for freedom and your desire for security.
Turning it inward.
Yeah. By reflecting on the insights we've gained from exploring this dynamic between Aquarius and Capricorn, how might you gain a better understanding of these forces within yourself, or maybe in your own relationships?
Okay.
What impossible balance, maybe something you thought couldn't coexist, might you be ready to explore now in order to create more harmony in your own life?